Well, it should be here. No.
Hey, Doug. Hey, Doug.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing. I said, oh, no one's showing for me.
Well, nobody showed for me last week, so I know the feeling.
So I think today I'm supposed to talk about open houses. Oh, I'm kind of rough.
That's where you want to take it?
Yes. So so my mind is somewhere else, guys, so please forgive me. I just came back from vacation and today has been a rough morning because, you know, as a realtor, you're not supposed to have a life, you know?
That's right.
Yes. So how does open house play in our business? Answer?
How do they play?
Yeah, how would you, in our business as real estate agents, how do you think the open houses, like how do they work in our business?
As far as characterizing them?
Yeah, a lot of times, you know, like the old school, they would say like open houses is the best way to advertise, which is true, right? But you got to make sure when you're doing your open houses that you're kind of familiar with the territory. And what that means, that be familiar with the communities. So for me, I can't shut the door. For me, when I started doing open houses, what I would do is not only prep my open house, and what I mean by prep, sometimes I would like make popcorn, have, you know, cookies. I always made sure it was staged, right? And then had information. Not only did I have information on the house itself, right? I would also have information of other properties within that area that has similarities, right?
Okay.
Look at, you know, people are coming out, they're interested in buying a home, right? It may not be that home, right? But if you as an agent can say, hey, you know, there's a house around the corner just like similar, just 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. What's your thoughts, right? So they're looking at you like, oh, you're an expert, right?
Okay.
So one of the things that I learned early on, and I'll give you a prime example. I was doing an open house in one of our neighborhoods called Squirrel Hill, right? And the house, there was another open house 2 doors down, right? The houses were exactly the same. The difference is the home that I had hardwood floors and a more up-to-date kitchen. And that one didn't have an up-to-date kitchen. But this Italian family came in my open house, came in, walked right back out. But they stayed in Pia's for 45 minutes, right? Because at Pia had just came back from Italy, right? And, you know, they had a conversation. So in my case, I utilized one of our colleagues who spoke Italian fluently to bring these clients back in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you not only like when you're doing the open houses, you know, make sure, you know, you ask them, do they have an agent? Make sure, you know, your presentation is clear, right? One of the downfalls is when you're doing an open house, if there is like belongings in the home, like jewelry or anything, make sure you ask your clients to take all their personal possessions away, like their jewelry or wallet, anything of value, or have it locked up. Because sometimes people have a tendency of using open houses to set up robberies. And it has happened here in the Pittsburgh area more than once. And I bring that up to say, it's just like going into a store. You really don't want to follow the clients around to every room. You know, you want them to feel comfortable, especially like if it's a couple. You know, you want them to be able to communicate with each other, what they like and what they don't like.
Okay.
And then afterwards, what I always do, I just do a little follow-up, right? Like make sure some people don't want to sign in, you know, but try to see if you can get as much information for the client, like their address, email, and their phone number.
Okay.
So for my own personal touches, I send them a card. versus an email. Because that in today's society, that meant that you really thought about them. So my recent, I haven't done an open house probably a year, but I'll be doing one within the next 2 weeks. But my last open house, when I started doing it, I'm doing it with my clients, is sending them thank you cards with scratch off, $1 scratch off in there.
Okay.
So because you want this person, even, because you're looking for a home and you want to stand out as the caring person and the expert. So again, as far as literature in the home, print out everything in that area. I do a 3-mile radius, right, of similar homes. I don't pass it out to them, but I study it. And so when they're leaving, ask them questions like, hey, what did you think? What's the good things? What the bad things? Then that's when you come in as the expert. Like, how? There's a house around the corner on Miller Street, similar in price, similar in size. Hey, I can either meet you after open house today, which is over at 3, or how about if I schedule an appointment for you to see it one day next week?
Yeah.
Because in their eyes, realize they're the laymen. And we're always supposed to be looking like we're the experts, even though you don't know nothing about the house on Main Street, but you're demonstrating to the clients who's coming through that you're knowledgeable about the area.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yep. So preparation's a big key.
Huh?
Preparations is a big factor.
Correct. So in today's climate with COVID, we got to be very careful. I don't know, how careful we could be, but just making sure, like one of the open houses that I went through right after COVID, the line was around the corner. So they had footies, they had gloves and masks, right? And then they allowed so people in the home at a time. So I think that we should look at that and be careful with that, especially since COVID is on an uprise, right?
Right.
So if you're going to open house, I will look at the square footage of it and then try to determine how many people I would permit in the house, right? So hypothetically, if it's 4 bedrooms, a large living room, large dining room, you have enough space that you can probably have 3 people downstairs, 2 people in a bedroom. But I wouldn't overflex it with too many people in the home due to COVID. The other thing as conscious, once you the open house is over with, what I would recommend is to have Lysol and spray the house down.
Okay.
Questions?
I don't have any.
No, not so far.
Okay.
Hey, Alexa.
So I know that Doug probably done some open houses. Oh, by the way, I'm DeAnna. I know Doug.
Hello.
And you're
I'm Darren.
That's
Darren.
Darren. Good.
Alexa. Sorry.
All at once.
So how many, I know Doug's probably done open houses. The other, have you done? Anybody else done any open houses?
I have
A
not.
couple.
You done?
Great,
You've
yeah.
done? Okay.
I have not.
Okay. So it's important to also try to advertise. So I'm gonna flip it a little bit. A lot of folks do open houses on Sundays, right? And Sundays for a lot of people is that laid back day. And then you have like Saturday. What I was finding out at the end when I was doing open houses a lot was if we pick like a Wednesday evening, like call it Moonlight Thursday or Moonlight Tuesday, where people are getting off of work, you can catch them more. But make sure like you advertise about it and let your seller know that you're planning to do something during the week, right? And when you do it during the week, have some like potato chips, some light sandwiches, little things that the person who's coming in that door can remember you by. Because sometimes what can happen is the neighbor will come, right? And the
Mhm.
neighbor is thinking about selling their house. And you don't even know through this open house that you're being interviewed. Because all they're saying is like, I'm here to see the open house. So just have something there that stands out to folks, right? And then look at Saturdays. Because people are going to the malls, people are out, you know, and just make sure you have enough signage around, you know, so make sure you have signage up the street, down the street, and around the corner pointing to your open house. And if you know that you're having an open house, like for example, I know that I'm gonna have one 2 weeks out from now, right? So I'm gonna send little postcards out in that area talking about the open house.
Okay.
I showed this house once and she had these little cookies with her name on them. And I think that would be a good idea for open houses.
Yeah,
It wasn't necessarily, it was shaped like a house and it like had her, like her email on it. They were really cute.
yeah, like, because we have to stand out. You know, and sometimes that just that small investment, and it doesn't have to be like you go to this big company, you could go to the dollar store and find little things, you know. Like one of the things that I've done in the past, I took my business cards, you know how people put their business cards on a magnet, you know, so the magnets here at Staples, I think they're like $15 for 50 of them, right? And you just peel them. I had my granddaughter helping me one year, and she's 8 now. She was 6 then. Just peel them, put your card on them, you know, but just come up with something different. Like you said, the cookies, you know, with your email, you know, stuff that'll stand out that this person's going to take away with them. Because you're trying to please 2 folks, right? You're trying to impress, to capture a new buyer, right? And then you want your seller to say, hey, my agent is really looking out for me. It's different. Because you have to realize, unless if the seller's been in the house for 20 or 30 years, they've been to an open house, especially if they brought a house within the last 6 years. Them themselves been to an open house. But I tell you, the cookies, they really work. Questions? Come on, guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know even where to begin.
What else, what other, what kind of follow-up tools or information gathering tools are you utilizing in your open houses?
For the follow-up, I sent them a thank you. I sent a thank you card. And I tried, so I'm a little different. I'm not that bombard, you know, you have some agents who just bombard you, right? So I look at that as like when the insurance people call me and try to keep me on the phone and be like, look, I don't want no insurance. So I try to send them a thank you card like within that week, because that's why it's important to try to get their mailing address, because it's more personal. And then I will call them like 2 weeks later. But in the thank you card, I'll thank them for coming to the open house. If they have any questions, feel free to give me a call, you know, put my phone number. I don't really give out my email address in the thank you card because I want that to be more personal.
Sure.
Because you figure today with technology, everybody's getting some type of email and you don't know, you know, you don't want it to go in the spam, but you want to stand out and be more personal.
Okay.
So with the seller itself, I'll show them how many people attended and I'll talk to them a little bit about, because one of the things, this is when you can really, if you feel that your listing is overpriced, right? This is a great opportunity to demonstrate to them that it might be time for a price reduction.
Any questions?
Would you say, Doug?
I'll just ask him, anybody here had any questions on that?
Just taking notes.
I love open houses. I think they're a really good way to get our company's name out there.
I can't hardly hear you.
I was more so making a comment. I said, I love open houses. I think they're just a good way to get our company's name out there because they're not with the market, how it's been. You don't see them a whole lot in our area, at least.
That is a good thing, because what happens is people hear of the Howard Hannas and the Caldwell Bankers, right? And then when we say Keller Williams, they like, well, who are you? You know, and sometimes it's not that we have to oversell ourselves, but we have to show the distinguish of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, I've been doing this. I worked for Caldwell Banker for 10 years. Then I went to a family business for about 3 years. And I've been here at Keller since 2015. And one of the things that people say, well, why are you at Keller Williams? Why don't you go over there and work with Tom, which was my old manager? I look at our signs. It's God first, family second, business third. So I look at it that I'm not saying that they're not ethnical, but our model is totally different, right? Where it's not beating us down. How many buyers do you have? How many sellers do you have? How many this? You know, it's more of a family feel, right? So I agree with you putting our signs out there, getting our name out there is tremendous, you know, and it puts us in a different situation, right? Because even down in Johnstown, I want to come down like maybe in April when the weather's a little better to look at your area in a different light, right? My girlfriend was raised in Johnstown, but there's different other programs that we may able to bring into your market center that may not exist there right now to assist you with the first-time home buyers, right? But that would have to come from your local government. And so that's where I would like to come down and talk to them about some of the initiatives that we have here in the city. Any more questions? Go ahead.
I don't have
Anything? Do you do anything special through your social media as far as like creating an event and then sending out invitations through your social media circle?
So I do, but I don't. So what I mean by that is my colleague did move to Georgia on me, but she's still doing it for me. I'm not big on social media, any of that. You know, I'm not computer savvy. So DeAnna Vaughn, which is still a Keller Williams agent, right? She actually does it for me. You know, like even when I get a new listing, she posts it on social media, right? So yes, you know, when we have bigger events, we definitely do it. And I have a strong following, but that's not my cup of tea. So that is one of my goals this year, to hire someone to boost my social media, and especially with LinkedIn.
Well, you're in luck
Huh?
because the gentleman sitting to my left is going to be, we're putting together a social media kit as a package for agents, and he's going to be running it.
Okay, is he gonna do mine personally? Because I'm so like I said, my girlfriend, she's from Johnstown, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she is a social media tech person. Hi. And so she, oh, you're okay. So she used to teach these classes. This is how we met. And she would teach these tech classes. And I came to one of them on a Saturday. And I'm the type of person I have to sit in the front of the class And if I don't understand, I'm gonna break you down and ask questions. So she got to a point in this hour class and said, excuse me, give me your name again. I said, DeAnna. She said, do me a favor. I said, what? She said, don't ask another question. I'm gonna do a one-on-one with you, right? So this was many years ago. Hey, Jack, when I'm talking many, like 15 years ago. So she did a one-on-one with me. She said, you know what? And she calls me Punk. That's a nickname we carry for each other. Punk, whatever you need something done, just call me and I will do it for you. So yeah, so I'm not good on that, but I'm glad we got people who are.
Yeah, he's going to do he's gonna handle a few of the agents here in office first, get some traction, and then he's gonna offer it as an extended service to agents that are like you, that either aren't tech savvy or don't see the value in spending the time at it. So.
Well, see, Doug, I see the value, right? It's just, that's not my lane. You know what I mean? I see a great value.
Well, we have a handful of old school thinking agents that maybe not see the value, but maybe it's more of don't see the value of their time being spent on it because they don't understand it, and they can't grasp the importance of it. So, there was a hole that we've noticed when we were in Johnstown visiting last week. They're the same scenario over there. We have 3 or 4 agents over there that are looking for somebody to do it for them. So, he's stepped up to the plate, and we're going to get him. I used to do that. I ran a company that did social media back when social media advertising was in its infancy. So that was what my company did, and now. We've seen a hole for it in our little world and decided that maybe it was a service we would offer. So
I think that's great. So the other thing with open houses, what I'm finding, which we have to be careful with, is people coming in videotaping or taking pictures. That is not permitted. And right now through COVID, you have agents who's coming in videotaping people's homes. I'm doing previews for them from out of town, and that is not permitted. There's going to be a lot of folks who's going to be in front of the ethnic board based on this videos and picture taking. We had our first meeting of the year just to talk about some of the things, some of the cases that we are projecting that's going to come in front of us, and that's one of them.
Okay, go ahead.
What if a agent comes to your open house and has a client that can't be there, so they're on FaceTime?
No.
Can they do you allow that in a private setting? Like if it's not an open house?
No. Private, open house, you're not
You can't
supposed to
do
do
it
it.
for request.
Right. Because if it's vacant, owner occupied, no. Right? Because what's going on is, I don't know in Georgetown, but I know here in Pittsburgh, you're getting a lot of buyers from California who, is trying to invest in Pittsburgh, and the agent's taking videotape. You don't know that person. You don't know, you know nothing about them. So if something happens, hypothetically, you're the agent, you go do the videotape at this open house, and the following week, that house gets robbed. You may be liable for that.
And it's a Personal Privacy Act issue because the people
Yes.
that are attending the open house may not give you permission to run videotape when they're around.
Correct.
Probably won't. No, it's probably
Correct.
what I was talking about.
No.
But she asked in a private setting.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing, if you're hosting yourself a video tour and you've arranged it with your client, that's a different scenario.
Yeah,
If you're hosting the video tour, that's different. Because you
right.
can do video tours and post them on Facebook if your client
Correct.
okays it.
I thought she said that.
But if you're in an open house setting, it does not, and that's a very gray area with the, especially with the individual rights to broadcast law.
Yeah.
Like I can't sit here legally, I can't sit here and broadcast this meeting out over the internet by law, because none of you gave me permission to do so. So even
Be very
Zoom
careful
before,
with that, because I sit on an ethnical board here for RAMP, and we had a 2-hour session on like what's coming up. And the social media, we're gonna see more people coming through the ethnic board based on social media than anything else this year.
Right. But like even Zoom asks you when you join a meeting, if the meeting's being recorded, it lets you know it's being recorded. And it asks you if you're okay with it. So even in this private setting, they're covering their bases because that's a very, she just said it, it's a very shady gray area that a lot of agents have gotten away with just doing. But in larger markets, I could see it being a major problem. So.
And I
So if
really,
your client just wants a video to request, you can just do it.
yeah, because
Go ahead.
If it's not.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Dee.
So even like with our sign-in sheets, we should put some type of disclaimer. Some wording that, you're giving me permission to share, your information, but some type of disclaimer. But I don't know what that looks like because before COVID, our business ran one way. Now we're out of COVID and our business is running totally differently, and people are expecting more of us, but we have to expect more of ourselves to cover ourselves, right? Because at the end of the day, I say this to a lot of agents. Yes, I'm in it to make money, but I'm actually in it to help people's lives become better. So another thing with open houses, what you could do is hypothetically, there's 2 other agents in your office or 2 agents over at Hired Hannah or whatever that other agency is. Y'all could come collectively and run like a Sunday open house. But this is what I'm going to do hopefully in the next month over in one of our communities. Like have a scavenger hunt, have something again that have you stand out, right? So it's not that they invite you to it, you invite them to it, right? Where you might say, hey, we're collecting money for Children's Hospital. Come to my open house. Drop off a blanket for a veteran. Come to my open house, right? So you're taking the open house and using it as a giveaway.
Yeah, you're tying it to a charity too.
I love that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when you do that, people, again, this is how we stand out from someone, right? Because we're not only looking at selling a house or you coming in to buy a house, we're looking at giving back to the community. And that'll stand out.
Yep. And that's the key, right, Dee, is when you, not just an open house. I mean, how many agents, obviously we're in a different world today, but as we move forward and prior to COVID, how many agents did open houses? You just saw open houses like, okay, it's an open house.
Right.
The idea is to stand out, right? Is to make it more of an event. And when I was in radio, everybody did on location broadcasts, but we would always do a little bit extra, as a station to get people to come. We always tied it. Project Winter Warmth was one. We always tied Project Winter Warmth to all of our events. MS Society, American Cancer Society, we would tie different charities to those events. And you can do that as long as you, as an agent, are not bribing the community to give something to them from you. Make sense?
Correct. And Doug, you're so right on that, because one of the things that, it's starting all over with me is that people feel that I get a lot of favoritism within the community, but they don't realize how much I give back to the community, right? They don't realize I volunteer. They don't realize the events that I sponsor, So it's good to always be tied into the community, right? Because that's your support system, And with the open houses, you wanna please your client. I hate to use the word seller and buyer. That doesn't rub right with me. But you want to demonstrate to your client, hey, this is the reason why I hired Doug. Because I know Doug not only is going to sell my house, but Doug gives back, right? Doug is a caring person, So all of this ties into real estate. like maybe like there was one time we had an open house where there was two houses side by side by the same owner, right? He was a developer. We had a band. You know, it was like a party. Did I sell the house that day? No. But there was this guy at that event. I was somewhere else. He was like, "Oh, you're in real estate. You're in real estate." I was like, "Yes." And he told me about the event. And he ended up referring a friend of his to me, right? So it's just like take and be outside of the box a little bit. What does that look like to be one step out of the box? And that's not putting, like I said, some of the things that you could pass out at the open house, you could go to a Dollar Tree or a Five Below and get, right? You know, like if you go to Five Below, get some candy bags, you know? Always like one of the things, and I had stopped doing it and it did affect people showing the open house, was get some balloons. Go to Giant Eagles. We got Giant Eagles. I'm not sure what food store you have there, but make sure there's some balloons out in front, right? Because you want even the traffic going past, like, oh, what's going on over there?
Mhm.
Questions?
Anyone?
Something I also saw people were doing is bringing in lenders whenever they have an open house. And I really thought that was cool.
I can't hear you. You're far in the
Lenders.
back.
I saw that something that people are doing locally is they'll have an open house and they'll bring in a lender with them.
Yes.
How
Yes.
many people through an open house and don't?
Yeah.
Well, how many people truly don't know about how to go about buying a house? Like, so I thought that was a really good tool.
That's it. And you know what? I'm glad you brought that up. The other thing is to have like a cost estimate sheet there, right? Where if the person is buying it traditionally, FHA and VA, and break down that cost sheet. But having a lender there is really a great thing, you know, because not only are you educating the person coming in, again, you're supplying a service and giving them knowledge that if they go next door to the next door open house, there's just an agent.
You're also bringing your lender that you prefer to use business as well.
Correct.
You're building a good business relationship.
Yeah. And see, and that's really like in our Pittsburgh market. So, you know, we're all about this affordable housing. So one of our lenders, he's really educated in different communities, right? So they're getting ready to bring a product into our communities where a first-time home buyer can almost get up to $80,000 in a second deferred mortgage, right? And a lot of lenders don't understand that. So if you have that lender who's educated about products and services, again, you're standing out.
Anything else, guys? No?
Okay, anything.
No? No? No?
Ridge? No,
Oh.
usually.
Is everybody a real estate agent?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great.
What did you ask?
Full time.
He's just starting to, so. His dad is pulling him in. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, that's the truth.
I wouldn't be here without him, so.
Yes.
Quite literally all the ways.
That's true.
Yeah.
So any questions on anything else about real estate? I'll be more than happy to share, answer.
Guys, I mean, Dee's a wealth of knowledge. So, I mean, if you have a question or if you have an experience that you've gone through the last week or so, or something that's, you know, been gnawing at you that you want to ask or maybe get out there and discuss? Floor is open. We still have another 15 minutes on this call technically, so we have time to cover whatever you guys want to go over.
Trying to think of something that Tara's going through. She's always got a bubble of joy going on.
One of her clients went out, I think, and drained his bank account.
Well,
Oh, yeah, that
He
was.
did
a-
something
is that
that he
true?
shouldn't do. Maybe not drained his bank.
Well,
account, but
he-
did
yeah.
something.
I
He
thought-
bought something.
We had an agent here, Dee, it's not in this meeting, but she had a client in the middle of the transaction go and take his bank account down too low.
I think it is okay. That's the last I remember.
Or the one, I had a client who pulled up in an Escalade.
Oh,
I said, I'm bad, I got a bad habit, I smoke cigarettes, right? So I'm outside in front of my office waiting for her, smoking my cigarette. I said, oh, that's a pretty car they're pulling up. And she gets out and I was like, hopefully you like that car better than you like that house. And it set us back 7 months, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You really
Yeah.
have to sit down with your clients and say, hey, like certain ones, I used to have them sign things like, don't change your credit, don't go about this, don't do this, don't do that, because people tend to only hear what they want to hear. And then when it goes wrong for them, they want to blame you. But yeah.
Yeah. Do you use buyer guides, Dee?
No. I sit down with them. No. So my habits, I don't want to be nobody in here's habits, right? Nobody. Like, I don't do the buyer's agency until I take them out for the second tap. I don't want
Okay.
that tap, you know, because I want you to be able to fire me like I want to fire you, right? But you do want to sit down with the buyer before you take them out. Like, I can't believe, like, I have these listings and they're geared to low to moderate income families, right? And the agents are going to see them and they say, oh, well, I'm waiting for the pre-approval. Please don't take nobody out in your car, on your bike, without them having a pre-approval. I mean, that's not helping you and it's not helping them. You know, it's a twofold. You take them out and you think that they could afford $100 house and you show them $500 houses, and then you go back and they get a pre-approval for a $70,000 house. There's a $30 difference. That's going to make a difference in their buying power. So I know there's sometimes when the client says, oh, I want to find the house first and then I'll take care of that. Then just switch it up on them saying, you know, we just want to make sure, you know, your credit might be great. We just want to make sure that, you know, I'm being able to help you find the house of your dreams.
Right.
And, you know, please, because it's really not fair. Let's go back to open houses, or let's go back to us representing the seller, right? Is it fair to our client, the seller, for Doug to bring a client to their house who's not pre-approved or who doesn't have the capability of buying the house?
Mhm.
That's not fair to our client.
Right.
That's a good point.
sort of a waste
No.
of everybody's time.
So we have to look at it both sides, you know. The other thing with me with pre-approvals, if my client gets pre-approved for 100,000, I look at their lifestyle. I look at like what kind of car they pulled up in, how much jewelry they have on, and so that 100 in my head just became 80.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they may not like it, but I don't want to see them in the grocery store and they saying, "Gee, I'm getting ready to go through foreclosure."
Alan.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're not allowed. Linda's not allowed to ask any questions.
Yes, she is.
Hi, Dee.
Hi.
Hey, Dee, can you hear me okay?
Yes, now I can.
Okay. I'm not a new agent. However, I think it's a good thing to talk about. I've been running into, when I make an offer, the listing agent not communicating as much as I would like them to do, 2 days will go by, and I usually give 24 hours to hear some sort of response. Now, if that 24 hours goes by and I keep trying to reach out to them with no response, how do you handle that? And at what point do you say, well, now the contract's null and void because we gave them 24 hours and that ended yesterday? How do you handle that, Dee?
So first of all, I don't do 24 hours.
You do
Right.
48?
I would go to 48, sometimes 72, because you have to look at lifestyles, right?
Yeah,
So for example, you don't know like what their client does, right? Say like if they're a nurse, a doctor,
yeah,
that might not fit their time schedule, right?
yeah,
But
Yeah.
that's as far as I go is 72 hours, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what is going on with certain companies, but communication is definitely lacking, right? And not only is it lacking, we get lazy, like we want to text, right? Now, right now, if somebody texts any of us, are we responding? No, we've been together, what, for 45 minutes? They're going to email you. Any of us on email right now? No. So that communication is very key, right? So I would call them, right? And then I would send an email and blind CC my client so that your client knows that you're working for them, right? So that they don't think you're the laxy-daisy one.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes, it does. But again, at what point, when you reach that date, do you, is it null and void? Do you give them a little grace? Do you just change the date on the contract?
So I give them grace, right? But that day, like say like Miss 72, that morning, I'm calling our agent like, hey, what's going on? Because again, we got to go back to ethnics. And it's sad that there's so many people in our industry that is unethical, and it'll throw up a sign in my eyes like, are you trying to get your buyer, or someone in your office
Yeah,
the house? So it's kind of hard because you don't know what the other agent, their means. But yeah, I would call them that morning. And then I would send them an email. Like I said, I would definitely blind CC my client so
yeah,
that they know that, I'm not dropping the ball.
right,
Yeah.
right. Well, my next move is have my broker call their broker.
Yep. Okay.
Sorry about this.
She just fired me, like, well, she's answering the phone. No, I'm joking. But no, that's what I would do.
sorry.
Also. And I hate to get to that point because at the end of the day, we're all adults, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But sometimes you have to do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a very, gracious person and I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but communication is paramount. And if they're gonna lack in that area, it makes us all look bad.
Yes. But see, again, something went down my throat. Again, everybody wants to be a real estate agent, right? And all they think we do is show houses and get a commission. But there's so much in between just showing a house and getting a commission. And communication to me is one of the key factors.
That's right. Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Anything you're going through right now, you have a question on, if it's right or wrong or stupid or?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong or stupid question. Remember, I
50
told
plus
you
deal.
I
I mean, that's just what's going on with that?
The attorney's handling it.
The attorney? Okay.
Yeah, we have a a listing agent who's representing a townhouse HOA, and that HOA is trying to, has tried in the past hasn't forcefully attempted to try to say it in this particular transaction, but has in the past tried to enforce that they are a 50+ community.
Can't do that.
Mm-mm,
You can't do that.
mm-mm.
And I know
Even
that.
Even
So-
if they had a board, their HOA board met, and they voted on it, and they're a 50+ community.
So that's kind of sticky, right? So I'll give you an example. Remember I said I do a lot in the community. So I work in the community I grew up in. And we received a $30 million, what they call Choice Grant Award. And there was an old abandoned school in our community that we wanted to rehab, which is under renovation now. We wanted it to be a seniors building. We couldn't word it like that. You could use the word prefer, but it's hard to really designate, right? You could use the word prefer. So it depends on the funding, how this project, like how, when it first was built, how it was funded, right? So if it received any type of federal dollars, they can't label it like that. But if it's private dollars, they can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But if there's
But there-
any type of federal funding in the project, and we're not talking about today, we're talking about from the time it was built, they cannot use that language.
Well, and they're not technically by law, because there is no such thing as a 50+ community. There's 55+
Yep,
communities, and they can be designated that way, but there is no designation for a 50+, and an HOA that is a residential, and it's not even a community, we're talking townhouses.
Yeah.
We're
right.
not talking like a enclosed one single entrance building or a village. This is a townhouse. Their HOA, they had gotten in trouble a few years ago because they had put it in their public comments when they listed it, that it was a 50+ community. And they were taken to task for that. There was a lawsuit filed. And when they relisted this property this past year, it's no longer anywhere in the comments that it's a 50+ community. And they did not have our buyer client sign anything to acknowledge that it is.
Okay,
So we have an attorney looking at the bylaws now, but we're just gonna muddle through to the closing because the client has not, the buyer has not signed anything that allows them to restrict him from purchasing the property because he's not of age. Which is
That's not-
discriminatory
That'd be
anyway.
like discrimination, Doug.
That's right, it's discriminatory anyway. Yeah. Yeah, if they were trying to claim it was 55+ and it was registered and designated as a 55+, they have all the grounds in the world. They'd be able to advertise it that way. They'd be able to prevent him from buying it. All of that would be fine, but they don't have a designate for that because it doesn't exist, number one. And number two, they can't discriminate against age.
So
Under
it's
any
funny, so
circumstance.
you brought that up, Doug, because, okay, so I do a lot of low to moderate income families. So there's a guy called me the other day, and basically he said I was discriminating. The product that I'm selling has an income restriction, right? But it's
Mhm.
according to HUD's guidelines, right? And him and his broker had never heard of it. And I mean, he really tried to, run me up and down. So it really depends, but you're right in your case. You could do probably 55 or 65, right?
Mhm.
But I didn't
Yep.
think that you could discriminate to tell someone because you're not 50, you can't buy this house.
Yeah, you can't just arbitrarily say, well, this townhouse facility is 50+. You can't. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, they went as far as to ask my client where he went to school.
Oh, yeah, they
what he
try.
does for a
Oh,
living.
yeah. This buyer's or this listing agent, he tried to, like, he wanted our agent, Ridge here, to answer questions about where he went to school, where did he live, where did he come from? I mean, it was ethical stuff going, and this happened right after the year after everybody updated their ethics classes. It was like,
He must be related to this agent that I was dealing with, right? You know, you have Home Snap?
No,
Okay, well, Home Snap enables an agent to go behind the scenes and see where you sell at, how you sell, and the price range, right? So last year, I did a lot of work with these nonprofits. So they were buying low, you know, houses for 40 and 30, but the goal is to keep, you know, the houses within the community so people within the community could afford to live there, right? So she looks at my Home Snap, and we're in a deal, and it's $250,000 house. So she says to me, she said, well, you know, I understand this is a little bit out of your league. So maybe, you know, I said, out of my league, what are you talking about? And I already seen that she checked me out on LinkedIn and the Home Snap. And I had to bring to her attention, I said, do you realize last month I sold $1 million worth of inventory on 2 sales? Huh? I didn't see it. I said, no, because you were poking. How I live, what I look like has nothing to do with our capabilities. And I don't know why people take that, like even in our industry, when people put that they have an MBA, that has nothing to do with us selling real estate.
Yeah.
Nothing at all.
So
Come to
I
Pittsburgh.
guess my question about this topic is Ridge here, raise your hand, Ridge. That's Ridge, and he has the young buyer, you know, but you know, there's always that, you know, big question mark. Is this going to go to close? Is Ridge's client going to be, you know, crap out of luck? And, you know, we just want to protect our client. So Ridge, you know, goes through all the right channels. He contacts an attorney. The attorney's looking into this. What else can we do to protect our buyer from whatever could happen here?
So he did the right thing as far as getting an attorney involved, right?
Yeah.
But make sure the attorney is a real estate attorney, right?
yeah, oh, he
You know,
is, he is.
Okay, make sure he's a real estate attorney, right?
Yeah, he
Because that's
said
all you
it
can do at
wasn't-
this point, you know? We as agents, we can only go so far. And that's when we start looking at other professionals to assist us in our
Yeah.
journey, right? So Rich did the right thing, you know, getting a real estate attorney involved in it, right? And from that point, he should actually let the real estate attorney deal with the HOA, right? And him step back from the agent, the listing agent, right? Give her at least MO, you know, as far as conversation, because again, people hear what they want to hear, right? So have as less conversation with her. And Rich, document everything. You hear me?
No, I have
Yeah.
everything in emails.
Yeah.
Document everything. Like if the listing agent calls you at 10:10 today, write down 10:10 at, what's the date? January 25th at 10:10. Liz called and we talked about da 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 da. Always have documentation whenever you're in a difficult situation.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah, the attorney said it's not legit because first of all, there's a couple problems with it because it wasn't voted on by a 3/4 vote. It was voted on by majority vote, which is 51%. And he can tell that it wasn't drawn up by an attorney just by looking at it. So I think it's just something they're trying to, like she was saying, they're trying to prefer people in that community to be that old,
Yeah.
but it's not really legit and they can't enforce it because it's never been registered. And they
Gotcha.
can't register it because it's not legit. That's
Yeah.
basically what the attorney said. So.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, it's almost like redlining, like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep. Yep.
Yep.
any more questions?
Anything else?
You mentioned Home Snap, D. Are you on it?
Yeah, I don't know how I got on there, but I'm on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, we don't have much, we don't, out in this neck of the woods, we don't have many, many of them, coming through, like IDX being fed through these third party or non-Zillow related search engines. So we don't really have a huge use for it, but yeah.
Is
I mean,
HomeSnap like a public
I
thing, or
don't
is that
use it
something?
that
you have to
often,
register?
home snap, but Redfin,
Yep.
they give you good leads.
Yeah.
I wasn't successful with Zillow.
We're killing it with Zillow. It was 30% of our volume last year.
Yeah,
We love Zillow.
30% of the, what, 27 million?
Yeah.
any more
Yeah,
questions?
Yeah.
Wait, what did she say? What?
Redfin.
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 Is it just like Zillow?
It is. I mean, in the bigger markets, it's kind of, it's been more successful. We haven't seen enough traction here for it to be something that's worth the amount of money,
Yeah,
you know, to get involved in it.
yeah.
We looked at it last year around this time and Zillow was already in place. So we just
Don't you have
expanded
to
it.
be like a Redfin realtor
No.
No.
or?
So what
Okay.
happens is that they'll reach out to you. And there's some criteria, like you had to sell so many houses in a year. You know, it's nothing about being a realtor. So what happens when they send you over a lead, the client thinks you're a Redfin realtor, so you have to explain to them that, no, I'm with Keller Williams, but no. And you don't pay them until you close one of their deals. So I've been kind of lucky with them, but
Okay.
none of it really like pans out to me, you know.
Mhm. Okay. Good stuff.
You mentioned HomeSnap. Can you hear me okay?
Uh-huh.
Okay, HomeSnap, is that like a public knowledge thing, or is that something you register on individually?
She doesn't know what's going on.
So Rich, to be honest, I think DeAnna registered me somewhere, but
Okay.
it is a tool. It's a great tool for you, like for me personally, like when I look back over a year to see where I sold at, like to kind of figure out like my niche, like did I sell more in the north or the east, right? And
Yeah.
so it just helps me personally to figure out like, you know, how can I expand my business, right? So hypothetically, it'll show you all the places where you sold, how much they sold for, right? So for me, I'll say like, okay, well, I sold 10 houses in the east. Why don't I see what I could do on the north or within the mile radius? Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's definitely something you sign up for. And there's no cost.
Okay.
All right.
I do have a question about Facebook.
Okay.
I have a couple of listings, and when we were with Howard Hanna, we could only post our listings on our Facebook page, our business page. And from there, I could share it to my personal.
So that's going to be, that's the good question for this upcoming year.
Okay,
With Facebook, right? Make sure your Facebook is just like if you were advertising in a newspaper, right? Meaning the broker's information, the broker's phone number, then your phone number, right?
right.
So yeah.
Uh-huh.
Now the feeding part, I'm not sure of, because you missed the beginning of the conversation. That ain't my lane, social media, but I know how have to advertise on it now.
Yeah,
And also, again, making sure your client is aware of that you're putting their property on Facebook.
mm-hmm.
So again, I'm thinking like this year, we should really like look back and sit down and look at some language to protect us, saying,
I'm
you
pretty
know.
sure that's in the listing contract too, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but in the listing contract, it asks you if they're willing to advertise it online. Now, it doesn't say necessarily Facebook, but
No.
it just says online.
Yeah,
But I don't know if that protects you or not.
I missed that somewhere.
yeah. No, it is. It's on the
Okay.
listing contract, but it just gives us permission to advertise them on the MLS signage, things like that.
Yeah,
But it
it doesn't give us permission to post them on Facebook.
No,
It doesn't.
no, I don't think it does.
So I mean,
But
that is
the internet,
Right, the internet.
it
yeah.
might say the internet.
But me looking at the internet, I'm old school. I'll be 61. So when
Hey,
we're
I
in
could
a
have been your babysitter.
So when I think of the internet, I don't think of Facebook, right? The young folks, they think of the internet, they think of Facebook. So we got to make sure we're covered with that.
Yeah. Yep,
That seems like a gray area to me because Facebook is online, so.
yeah, it is a gray
I don't
area, yeah.
I think what it comes down to though, like what your problems, it's just making sure you're communicating with your client, because even if it does say the internet, do we really want to say, oh, it's a gray area for our client? I'm gonna start asking my clients before I put it on Facebook now.
Yeah, because
Well, is
Because
your
we're
client the
working-
only one that could have a problem with it? Could somebody else be like, oh, you did that without, like, how? You know,
Well,
Also,
your-
it's
But your
ridiculous.
client's the one that you're working for, so if your client has a
I see
problem
what
with it,
he's
there's a
saying, yeah.
huge problem.
Yeah.
I see what you mean though.
yeah.
He's saying, could they take us to court?
Well, I'm saying, could
doing it.
anybody else besides your client raise an issue?
Just their house
Because
and-
they think it's illegal?
Yeah,
I don't know if it's illegal.
Maybe
Yeah.
family members, like if it's an estate. But technically, if you're working for the family members, they're
yeah, they're probably gonna
hey
be.
guys, I'm gonna end. Any more questions?